Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone.
Authorities in the city of Shreveport, Louisiana have lambasted the actions of a local mother this week after she was accused of dumping her own kids at the side of the road before allegedly attempting to cover up what she had done by reporting them missing. The whole thing began sometime on May 28th when the mom in question, 33-year-old Lakeisha Washington, was driving with her kids and they got into an argument. It's unclear what the argument was about, but we do know what allegedly happened next. According to reports, Washington got so fed up with her 11 and 12-year-old that she stopped her car near the intersection of Hollywood and Broadway Avenue and ordered them to get out of the vehicle. Moments later, she took off, leaving the kids to fend for themselves. The 11 and 12-year-old did eventually walk 4 miles to the closest relative's house. However, Washington didn't know that. So in an apparent bid to explain the situation, she called local police and claimed her adolescent children were missing. Unfortunately for Washington, though, it seems the whole thing quickly blew up in her face. As she was talking to officers at her home on the 3400 block of Palm Road, they received word that the kids were safe. They also learned the real story about what had happened. Shortly after this, Washington was arrested and charged with 2 counts of criminal neglect of family. Police say they also passed along the details of what happened to the Louisiana Department of Children and Family Services. Shortly after this, Washington was arrested and charged with 2 counts of criminal neglect of family.
A Washington grandfather's quick and courageous actions may have saved his family's lives last week after an unhinged food delivery app worker showed up at his daughter's house drunk and armed, demanding a tip. The whole thing unfolded on the morning of May 29th, when the grandfather in question, Anthony Vellino, was in the middle of breakfast with his grandchildren at his daughter's place in the city of Vancouver. Suddenly, the family meal was interrupted by loud banging at the front door. When Anthony's daughter opened up, she was confronted by a man, later identified as 59-year-old Robert Delahant. Immediately, the woman could smell alcohol on Delahant's breath as he started to go into a drunken rant. Delahant explained that he had made a DoorDash delivery to the woman's address the night before when she ordered about $100 worth of groceries. He said he had come back that morning because he felt he was owed a tip. Initially, Anthony said that he considered giving Delahant a couple bucks, but as his behavior got more and more aggressive, he changed his mind. That's when he got up and took over the interaction, telling Delahant he needed to leave. However, things quickly escalated when Anthony noticed that the 59-year-old had a handgun strapped to his waist. That's when he realized he was in a fight for his life. In wild home surveillance footage that partially captured what happened next, you can see Anthony struggling with Delahant and moving him away from the front door. He's able to get the gun away from the unhinged DoorDash driver, pushing him up against a vehicle in the driveway as he works to clear the weapon of ammunition. Both men ended up calling 911, though for obvious reasons, Delahant was the only one who was arrested in the end. He is now facing charges including felony harassment, driving under the influence, and assault. Perhaps the most ridiculous part of the whole thing, though, is that Delahant did get a tip. Anthony's daughter had immediately tipped the 59-year-old through the DoorDash app at the time of the initial delivery. So apparently the money Delahant was demanding was an additional tip that he wanted in cash. In an interview with local media after the ordeal, Anthony talked about how shocked he was by the bizarre and dangerous situation. He told reporters in part, quote, "I could have been shot. My kids could have been shot. If he would have gotten his hands on that gun, somebody could have gotten hurt. I still can't believe it happened. He can't make that decision that I am going to somebody's house to get a cash tip." For their part, DoorDash released a statement following the incident, stressing that they have a zero-tolerance policy for harassment. They say Delahant was immediately removed from the app when the situation was brought to their attention.
Representatives from Oregon's Salem Police Department say that a dozen people are injured this week, several of whom remain hospitalized following a terrifying stabbing attack at a local men's shelter. The disturbing incident unfolded on the evening of June 1st at the Union Gospel Mission, located on the 700 block of Commercial Street. According to reports, the organization provides help and refuge for up to 150 men a night who have nowhere else to go. That night, things started off normally enough. Staff were busy helping residents get set up with their accommodations for the evening. One of those men was 42-year-old Tony Latrell Williams. It said that Williams had spent the previous night in the shelter, and this was supposed to be his second night there in a row. However, while staff were waiting for him to hand over his belongings so he could enter the main part of the shelter, things went completely off the rails. Chilling surveillance camera footage taken in the lobby of the building shows Williams standing near two other men while holding a bag. Suddenly, just after 7:20 p.m. though, he drops the bag on the floor and begins taking swipes at people. As you can see, it quickly becomes clear that he's armed with a knife. While several bystanders attempted to intervene and calm Williams down, they were unsuccessful. One man was repeatedly stabbed by the 42-year-old even after falling to the ground. After injuring a number of people inside the shelter, Williams continued the attack outside. A total of 12 people were stabbed before police could respond to the scene. And from the sounds of it, things could have ended much worse if it weren't for the fact that the Salem Police Department is right across the street. Additional video shows Williams being restrained and arrested nearby. Following the attack, a number of victims were taken to local hospitals with some significant injuries. Currently, 5 remain hospitalized, with 2 in serious condition. While it appears none of the names of the wounded have been released, it's said that they're between the ages of 26 and 57. At least 2 were staff members of the Union Gospel Mission, some were residents, and others were simply pedestrians outside the facility. As for Tony Williams, authorities say he has a lengthy history of mental illness issues and violent incidents. At least 3 of these prior cases involve the use of knives, and according to local media, Williams has been in and out of mental health facilities for about a decade. Both in interviews with police and at a court hearing this week, Williams claimed the entire stabbing attack was self-defense. Of course, this appears to be directly contradicted by the video evidence at the scene, though still, no motive behind the situation has been confirmed at this time. In a statement this week, the executive director of Union Gospel Mission, Craig Smith, discussed the impact of the frightening ordeal, as well as what will come next. He wrote in part, quote, "As you can imagine, our guests and staff are shaken up and grieving. Already we are in conversation and meetings with staff and guests to discuss safety improvements to the best of our ability moving forward." Tony Williams is now facing a number of charges, including 1 count of attempted murder and 11 counts of second-degree assault. He remains in custody.
Authorities in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, say that they are investigating an equally senseless and disturbing case after a local business owner was found dead under horrifying circumstances late last month, and a teenage couple has now been charged with his murder. The whole thing began sometime on the night of May 24th when Anne Arundel County Police began receiving calls from concerned residents in the community of Davidsonville. Several callers told 911 dispatchers that they had seen a pickup truck engulfed in flames in the parking lot of a local business. That business turned out to be the Tropic Bay Water Gardens, a local aqua gardening supply store. And when emergency responders arrived, they made an awful discovery. The burning vehicle belonged to the store's owner, 67-year-old Edward Koza. Not only that, but Edward was inside the truck. After extinguishing the blaze, authorities found Edward's body in the passenger seat of the pickup truck. Chillingly, his hands and arms were bound, and his mouth had been taped shut. The melted spout from a gasoline canister was also found inside the vehicle, further indicating that what happened here was no accident. On top of all of this, police recovered some articles of clothing that seemed new. Among them was a Bass Pro baseball cap, which turned out to be a major clue. Upon launching an investigation, detectives collected surveillance camera footage from a number of businesses in the area, including a nearby gas station. When they reviewed the footage from that night, they discovered video of Edward's vehicle, but he wasn't the one driving. Instead, a young man and woman were inside. Not only did the couple purchase gasoline, but the man was wearing the same Bass Pro hat recovered from the crime scene. With the help of this evidence, authorities were able to identify both suspects. It's since been revealed that they are a pair of 18-year-old high school students named Jonah Poole and Kylie Alyssa Dakes. Poole and Dakes were arrested on May 31st, after which Anne Arundel County Police released several more details of the investigation. They now allege that the high school seniors, who are dating, killed Edward Koza during the middle of a horrifying robbery. According to police, the couple entered Edward's business shortly before closing time on May 24th, after which they restrained him and ransacked his store. Before purchasing the gasoline and setting the truck on fire with him inside, it's believed that Edward was beaten in the head with a large rock. perhaps most disturbingly of all, so far authorities say that they have not been able to determine Edward's exact cause of death. That means there's a possibility he was still alive at the time the truck was set on fire. As for the motive behind the crime and why Edward was specifically targeted, authorities say that is still under investigation, though they have revealed that Poole worked at the Tropic Bay Water Gardens for 2 weeks sometime last year. Additionally, it's been reported that Edward contacted police about a burglary at his home just 2 weeks before his murder. It's unclear if Poole and Dakes are suspected of being involved in that crime as well, though it's worth pointing out that they have been charged in connection with another similar crime that took place around this same time. According to local media sources, Poole is accused of burglarizing the restaurant where Dakes had worked up until recently. In that incident, he allegedly caused about $6,000 worth of damage and stole a further $11,000 from a safe. In the Edward Koza case, Poole and Dakes are each now facing charges including murder, assault, and arson. If convicted, they could both be looking at incredibly lengthy prison sentences, something that's all the more jarring when you consider the two haven't even graduated high school yet. According to reports, Dakes had been planning to attend Notre Dame of Maryland to study radiology and had received more than $200,000 in scholarships. At the time of this recording, both suspects remain in custody.
Employees at a Florida sandwich shop helped to save a woman from a potentially deadly situation last week after they discovered a disturbing note left behind by a female kidnapping victim in one of their bathrooms and quickly brought the situation to the attention of police. The whole thing started sometime on May 27th at a Jersey Mike's restaurant in the community of Navarre. According to reports, one of the staff members there, Eleanor Coffey, was doing a routine check of the bathroom facilities when she came across a crumpled up piece of paper on the floor. Upon opening it up, she realized it was a note, and when she started reading, she was horrified by what she saw. The message had been left by a female customer who had been in the sandwich shop earlier that same day. It stated that she had been kidnapped and was in desperate need of help. In Eleanor's words, the note read, quote, "Please help me. I'm at this address in Navarre. I need you to call police to do a wellness check." The address in question reportedly belonged to a 34-year-old man named Jordan Williams, a professional wrestler who was better known by the stage name of Jaden Steele. And when police were alerted about the incident, they quickly realized that Williams had a lengthy history of domestic violence. Understandably, this was concerning, especially because the note left behind by the female victim provided additional disturbing insight into just how dangerous a situation she was in. According to an arrest report, the message went on to state, quote, "Let cops know don't approach the house unless my Hyundai Kona is in the driveway because his parents will alert him and he will hurt me. I just want to get home to my kids and family. He controls my phone, so he will know if you message me. Please get me home. Help." Thanks to these detailed instructions and a timely 911 call from Eleanor and her colleagues, Santa Rosa County Police were able to carry out a successful response. During a subsequent search of the property, officers were able to rescue the female victim. She had visible injuries and was taken to a hospital to be treated for suspected broken bones as well as other trauma. Horrifyingly, it's now alleged that the unidentified woman was subjected to a prolonged period of abuse at the hands of Williams. Her nightmarish ordeal reportedly included 6 to 8 months of isolation, repeated brutal attacks, and threats involving weapons. Sadly, it seems that this is not the first time the woman had been held against her will by Williams. Her ex-husband, who has a restraining order against Williams, told police that he once kept her captive for 2 days, during which time he tied her to a bed, urinated on her, and spit tobacco in her mouth. The victim told police following her rescue this week that she hadn't previously sought help because Williams repeatedly threatened to kill her. Following his arrest last week, Williams was charged with numerous offenses, including felony aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, felony kidnap, felony battery, misdemeanor battery/touch or strike, and felony battery strangulation. He currently remains in custody.
Authorities in Gibson County, Indiana say that 3 people are dead and 1 is fighting for their life in hospital, following a disturbing shooting last week allegedly carried out by a local man who was arguing with his wife about their impending divorce. The whole thing began at around 8:30 p.m. on May 29th, when Gibson County police started receiving 911 calls about a shooting at a property in the town of Haubstadt. Several people said that they had heard gunshots coming from a residence on the 12,000 block of South Scottsdale Drive. However, one of the calls quickly stood out. According to police, it was from one of the owners of the home in question, 77-year-old Patrick Waite. Waite calmly stated that he had shot his wife and several other family members. He stayed on the line long enough to explain that he would surrender peacefully and that they would find him outside, before stating that he needed to call his kids to tell them what he had done. Sure enough, when officers arrived at the scene, they spotted Waite exactly where he said he'd be. The 77-year-old told them where they could find his gun. Upon heading into the house, police were met with a chilling scene. 4 people inside had been shot, and 3 of them were dead. The deceased have since been identified as Patrick Waite's wife, 61-year-old Alma Waite, Alma's mother, 81-year-old Gloria Tapia, and one of Alma's sons, 39-year-old Fernando Ramirez Sr. The injured victim was Alma's other son, 44-year-old Juan Ramirez Jr. Juan had suffered gunshots to his neck and chest and was taken to a hospital in critical condition. It's now alleged that prior to the 911 calls, Patrick Waite had gotten into an argument with Alma about their marriage and their home. According to reports, the pair had been married for less than 2 years, but they were already headed for divorce. Alma wanted out of the relationship, but Waite did not want the marriage to end. That evening, Waite had reportedly returned home after Bible study, and an argument had quickly started. Alma was apparently angry because Waite had gone out instead of helping to care for his mother-in-law, who had recently suffered a stroke. At some point, the argument escalated when Alma brought up their house. She said she wanted Waite to leave because he had brought a gun into their home. Waite responded that he wasn't going to leave because he had lived there for 27 years. That's when Alma reportedly informed him that she had filed a quitclaim deed to try and transfer the property into her daughter's name. At that point, Waite allegedly pulled out the gun that was in his back pocket and started shooting. After killing Alma, the 77-year-old reportedly walked calmly from room to room, shooting the other victims. Gloria was killed in her bed, while Juan and Fernando were shot in other areas of the house. According to police, there were at least 4 other people inside the residence at the time, including a child, though thankfully none of them were injured. In a subsequent interview with investigators, Patrick Waite allegedly confessed to everything, telling them, quote, "I'm as guilty can be." He went on to say, quote, "I shot them all. I'm certainly not proud of that fact," before stating that he knew what he did was wrong and that God would never forgive him. Despite this, Waite pleaded not guilty to charges against him at his first court appearance this week. He currently remains in custody on 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder, with authorities saying that they expect more charges to follow.
Authorities in Jacksonville, Florida say that they are investigating an equally strange and upsetting case this week after a man robbed a local pet store by shoving one of their animals down his pants. The brazen crime took place in broad daylight on May 27th at the Petland location on Beach Boulevard. It began when the unknown male suspect walked into the store pretending to be a customer. After heading straight for the Ferret section, the man picked up a $650 female named Stella. Bizarre surveillance footage recorded inside the store shows the suspect crouching down while playing with Stella before shoving her down his shorts. Moments later, the man began heading for the door. As you can see, he is clearly holding the crotch of his shorts to prevent the ferret from falling out. Because none of this was exactly stealthy, the man was immediately spotted by the store's manager, who attempted to run after him. However, he was able to make it back to his vehicle and drive off before the manager could catch a glimpse of his license plate. According to reports, the man was driving some sort of white work van with multiple ladders on top. While the whole situation is mildly amusing, if only because of how ridiculous it is, staff at the pet store say they aren't laughing. One employee told local media, quote, "Everyone here is an animal lover, and we want to make sure that they go to good homes. How can we guarantee that when he's putting it down his pants?" It was really upsetting. They went on to say that the crime had affected the other ferret who was still his cage mate at the pet store, stating, quote, "They're bonding animals, so they need someone else in there. This one was actually in with the ferret that had gotten taken, so we had to put another ferret in with her, and they had to get some adjusting together." It was definitely a direct effect. At the time of this recording, the ferret thief has yet to be caught, though police are hoping that by circulating images and surveillance footage of the crime, he can be identified. Anyone with information about the strange case is asked to reach out to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
Representatives from Washington's Chelan County Sheriff's Office say that they are desperately searching for a wanted man this week after he was accused of the horrifying murders of his 3 young daughters. during what was supposed to be a court-ordered parental visit. The heartbreaking situation began on the afternoon of May 30th, when the man in question, 32-year-old Travis Decker, picked up his 3 daughters from their home in the city of Wenatchee. The girls, 9-year-old Paityn, 8-year-old Evelyn, and 5-year-old Olivia, lived with their mother Whitney full-time. She had been granted sole custody of the children since her divorce with Travis back in 2022. However, as part of a court-ordered parenting plan, Travis was allowed to spend several hours visiting with his daughters every other weekend. Travis picked up the girls around 5 p.m. that day, and as part of the pre-arranged visit, was supposed to have them back by 8 o'clock. However, he and the kids never returned. To Whitney's horror, she also wasn't able to reach her ex-husband on his cell phone. Right away, there were concerns for the safety of the children. Though Travis had never harmed his daughters or violated his visitation terms before, he suffered from borderline personality disorder, as well as PTSD from his time serving in the Army. He also had no fixed address, making it difficult to know where he might be. Still, no one was prepared for what happened next. After putting out an Amber Alert for the missing girls, a large search was also launched. To aid in the operation, images and video of Travis were released to the public, including Ring doorbell surveillance footage of the 32-year-old captured on the same afternoon that he disappeared with the kids. The effort continued over the weekend until Travis's white 2017 GMC Sierra pickup truck was spotted abandoned near the Rock Island campground outside the town of Leavenworth. Inside the vehicle, police found food, blankets, a wallet, and car seats belonging to the missing girls. Chillingly, 2 bloody handprints were also smeared on the back of the truck. Sadly, things would only get worse though. On June 2nd, almost exactly 72 hours after all of this began, authorities located the bodies of Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia. The girls were found in an embankment close to the abandoned pickup truck. Their wrists were zip-tied, and plastic bags were covering their heads. It was later revealed that they had likely died of asphyxiation. However, Travis Decker was nowhere to be found. At the time of this recording, the search for the 32-year-old father is still ongoing. More than a week later, authorities are searching extensive areas of forest and campground in and around Chelan County. They say Travis could survive in the wilderness on his own indefinitely thanks to his extensive military training, though they also have reason to believe he might be trying to flee to Canada. The area where all of this took place is not that far from the Canadian border, and investigators have stated that Travis's online activity also supports this. Prior to the alleged murders, the 32-year-old reportedly searched Canadian job sites, as well as phrases such as, quote, "how to relocate to Canada," and "how does a person move to Canada?" In terms of the motive behind the shocking crime, as you might imagine, not much has been confirmed because Travis is still on the run. However, based on statements by those close to the 32-year-old, it seems that his mental health had been rapidly declining in the days and weeks leading up to all of this. It's believed that among other things, he had stopped taking his medication, and that he had abruptly cut off communication with a Georgia pastor who had been doing counseling calls with him. In a protection order filed by Whitney Decker shortly before the murders, she wrote in a statement, quote, "He had seemed better, then it seemed like things just started happening one after another." In court documents, she described a car accident that Travis had been involved with that seemed to send him spiraling, as well as a phone call she received from his supervisor at work. The supervisor was reportedly concerned for Travis's well-being and said that he was being bullied and isolated by his colleagues. The supervisor warned that it, quote, "seemed like he was on the brink of something really extreme." For her part, Whitney has said that while she is absolutely devastated by Travis's alleged actions, she views him more as a completely broken man than a cold-blooded killer. In statements given through and by her lawyer, she said in part, quote, "There was not one instance that shows that Travis did not love those girls and was not a loving, active father. He struggled with mental health. Yes, we knew that. Whitney knew that he had struggled with it their entire marriage. He never raised his voice to those girls. He never hit them. He never took off with them before. She knows who Travis is in his core is a completely different person than who he is as the person that struggles with complex PTSD and borderline personality disorder, as the person who served as an Army Ranger in combat." The lawyer also went on to share Whitney's views that the whole tragedy might have been avoided if Travis had been given access to the mental health services that he needed. The lawyer stated, quote, "What Whitney believes is that the girls would still be alive if our veteran system and the resources, the mental health resources available to our veterans, was adequately funded. Ultimately, what killed those girls was Travis's mental health issues. He had sought out emergency services. Of course, we didn't find this out until after he went missing, but we found out that he had reached out, for emergency services for veterans. At the time of this recording, the search for Travis Decker remains ongoing. He is currently wanted on 3 charges of first-degree murder, as well as 1 count of kidnapping. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.